Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take.
On today's Your Take, I'm joined by two women who formed the nucleus of a band that was formed in 2008. My guests are soulful singer-songwriters who compose original songs and cover famous material with a unique spin. Their music is driven by versatile guitar grooves, innovative percussion, and two voices that blend and in harmony. The band performs swinging country, rock to pop, the blues and soul. A long stay on the live music circuit, my guests have now released 4 well-received albums: Unmarked Highway, Drivin On, Live at the Bevy, and The Sheep Save Christmas. They play around 200 shows a year, traveling throughout continental USA and the Caribbean. On today's Your Take, I talked to the talented Ashland Miller and Laura Cerulli from Mama's Black Sheep. We discuss how their love of music came about and when they started playing, how they met one another and why they started working together, the creative process and writing their own material, and a musician's life on the road and making a living. Good evening, both. Thank you for being guests.
Thank you for having us. We
Hello,
appreciate
James.
it. Hello.
Thank you.
No, thank you kindly for being guests today on Your Take. And we're obviously going to talk about your passion for music, your profession, how you've become professional musicians, and we'll talk about the whole journey. But to begin with, do you mind if we go back to the very beginnings? A question for you both. I wanted to ask when and where you were both born. And can you just give us a portrait of who your parents are and what they did for a living? And do you also have siblings?
You want me to start? All right, I'll start. I was born in San Jose, California, and but I grew up mainly in Maryland on the East Coast. And my parents, my dad started out in the military, and he's an electrical engineer by training, and he continued after his military service to work for the government as a civilian. And my mom did a bunch of things in insurance and finance and sales, but she was mostly a stay-at-home mom once myself and my brother were born. My brother was born first. Yeah, I have one sibling. He's 4 years older than me.
And what about yourself, Ashland?
I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, and my family has always been in the furniture business, to the tune of having a showroom in High Point, North Carolina, the furniture capital of the world, and doing the trade shows and all of that kind of stuff. My mother was a Spanish teacher and English teacher, and substituted once she became a full-time mom. Rest her soul, she's in heaven now, but my dad's just celebrated his 81st birthday, and we were able to attend his birthday party in Greensboro, North Carolina. Yeah, and he looks great. I hope I look that great when I'm 80, 81. So.
A brief introduction on your upbringings and a little bit of a portrait on your parents. I kind of want to move on and ask you about music, and a question for you both again. At what age did you express a love of music and started playing instruments? And which instruments did you start experimenting with? And did you have music lessons, or were you self-taught?
Well, Ashland and I actually have a very similar beginning of music story. We were both of our moms dabbled with a little piano, and so we had pianos in the home. And as soon as we were each respectively old enough to crawl up on the bench is about when our interest in music started showing. So we have that in common. I started playing, very, very young, and started formal piano lessons when I was 3.
Oh, wow. So very, very young.
trying to call me. There we go. Oh, 3.5 years old. So, and then I did take lessons all through my childhood, and played in school as well. I played violin in school and started on percussion and things also in middle school, grade school. So.
And I also came from a bit of a musical background. On my mother's side, my mom and her dad played piano and sang. And then my dad's mom on his side was a dance instructor straight out of New York City. So we it was either dance or music. It was always music in the family. And just like Laura said, as soon as I could crawl up on the piano bench, I started playing. And when I was baptized at the 11th largest Presbyterian church in all of America. And as they were baptizing me, Frank Pethel, the choir director, had to come around because I was screaming at the top of my lungs, and he goes, "I want her in my choir." And sure enough, I was in the choir.
That was your first paid job already, professional
Yeah.
musician.
Oh yeah, I paid dearly for that job. Yes.
It's interesting that you both come from musical backgrounds, and I like to always ask all my guests about their early education and what sort of impression it made on their lives. And I wanted to ask you both again where you both went to school. Was music taught at your school? And what was your overall experience like? And after finishing school, did you go on to pursue further education?
Yes, I grew up in Maryland, as I said, and I went to primary and secondary schools all in the state of Maryland, and music was always a part of the curriculum there. So, but I also had private piano lessons outside of school, my school day. So I was taking music lessons, we had chorus and vocal and like general music class. And I also played in the orchestra all through school, and also played piano throughout. And then when I graduated from high school, I went to college and majored in music education. So I'm a typical, hardcore band geek. I grew up playing in band, playing in orchestra all through school, and went right up to college doing the same thing.
And similarly, I had music all throughout, my younger life, and grade school. I was always in the choir and things like that. And then there were one of two schools that I was looking at. My major was music industry studies. I wanted to know more about the music industry. I was so passionate about music that I tried to fit my piano in the back of my car to go to college. And it just wouldn't fit. And so I switched to guitar at that point, and that's exactly why. I did have a few piano lessons, but I play by ear. I don't read music. And so, I was like 9 or 10 years old. My grandmother gave me piano lessons, and Mrs. Abels was the lady. And she would read the music, and then she would show me, here, look, here's this, here's that. And I said, will you play it for me one more time? Play it for me one more time. She would play it for me, and then I'll play it right back to her. When it got to be about 8 pages long, I couldn't remember. And I was so embarrassed that I had to quit the piano lessons. Pushed forward to college. Yes. I studied music industry studies in college. I learned about, the music industry, how the business part of it works. I was in vocal lessons, also guitar performance lessons in college.
What comes across already in this early part of the discussion is just a passion for music that's been instilled in you from a young age. You've been playing, as young children, a musical education as well, and some of the stories and funny memories that come from that as well. I think it's a good point to ask you now, what are your earliest memories of music, and what music was being played in your household when you were growing up? And can I also ask what music you discovered in later years and inspired you both to become musicians?
I have lots of early memories of music in my household. My parents were both great music appreciators. My dad, in his younger life in high school and maybe college, would play trumpet with the band, and had a guitar which he would plunk around on every now and again. My mom played a little piano at home, so I had those influences of them actually playing, but for the most part they were music listeners. They had a big collection of vinyl, because back in the day, the late 70s, early 80s, when I was a kid, that's what you did. You had your vinyl collection or your 8-track collection, if anybody remembers what those are.
Right.
And so while you sent us some questions in advance, and while I was thinking about this, like things that influenced me as a child, I can see how so much of what my parents listened to, they loved like harmony laden music, like the Carpenters and Peter, Paul and Mary, and Simon and Garfunkel. Lots of layers and harmonies, and the melody is always really present in songs like that, pop music of the time. They love that kind of stuff, but they also had a real love for classical music and jazz music. So there was a lot of music going on in my house all the time, which I think definitely influenced me growing up. And as I started to mature a little and start listening to my own things, again, this was the 80s. So early 80s, I was in elementary school and was listening to Madonna and Michael Jackson and Cyndi Lauper and the Eurythmics, and George Michael, when his stuff came out, he was a super big influence for me, which some people think is kind of funny, but I love his voice, and just the way he sings, I think is really special. And something about him, I just latched on to the way that he uses melody and lyrics together. It's a special thing for me. So I was instantly drawn to him, and U2 and all kinds of people in the 80s that we were listening to back then.
Interesting you mentioned George Michael, because he was a huge star in this country, in the UK, coming out of a popular band, a duo with Wham.
Right.
I didn't realize that he was maybe a big name in the US as well.
Oh yeah, he was huge. When Faith
him.
came out, Wham wasn't as big as here as when he went solo and the Faith album came out. That was a huge album here.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was sort of pinnacle for me as a very young kid at that point. And I was like, of course, and he was super dreamy and handsome, so everybody was like, oh, George,
And I have an uncle George, but he wasn't as handsome. He does it right.
Ashland, I wanted to ask you exactly the same question and find out what music was being played in your family household as a child, and also the music you discovered or later on maybe, and when you sort of rebelled maybe against the music your parents forced you to listen to back in those days.
Honestly, to answer that question, I don't ever feel like I was forced to listen to music, because music has always been a part of me. It was born in me already. So it's more just like mapping out how it fits every single thing that I hear. The Beatles, of course, the Carpenters, like same kind of stuff that Laura's listening to. We had this long stereo, for the big vinyl that you could play. You had to lift up the side and play. And of course, I was like this hoppy little kid. I was like, you jump all over it, and it would skip the record, and I would get, stop it, stop. I was always in trouble for that, But I think coming through, I definitely went, pretty commercial headbanger for a while there. Like the like not really, really hard, but just hard enough, like the hairband.
Yeah, okay.
And then,
yeah.
Like one of my major influences is Jeff Tate from Queensryche. I mean, who knows Queensryche? Not a lot of people, but he's like this mastermind that wrote this entire like anthology. It's just brilliant. But then, once I got to college, a lot of the things, being a music industry studies major, a lot of the things we were required to listen to jazz and classical and that kind of stuff. And I really feel like almost like ballet. When I took ballet, it helped my athleticism. Classical helped my musicianship. Yeah.
The key focal point of this interview, or what will be, is obviously your working relationship and how you met one another and went on to work and be in a band together. But before we discuss that in some detail, I wanted to ask, before you met each other, can you share with us your earliest memories of performing on the live music circuit? And can you tell us about some of the early bands you were in and the music scene at that particular time?
Wow. This is a complicated
that's a long
question,
story.
James. There's so many bands.
Yeah.
I have
Many illegal things.
I have been in so many bands for so long. Ever since I was very young. I guess my first real band was in high school. A good buddy of mine in high school, his dad was part of a big variety kind of band. You know, they did a lot of weddings and private function kind of band like that, corporate parties and that sort of thing. And so he had all the gear and all the stuff in his house because his dad was a professional musician. And so we were always over there, like in their studio, playing around with stuff. And then we put this band together with a bunch of kids from our high school band, you know, just that we all did something different. And so we had drums and guitars and keys and a couple horn players and a bunch of vocalists. And it was this huge ensemble of high schoolers, but we would go and play like at the, I don't know if they have this in England, but like the Lions Club or
they have the
Rotary Club, the Veterans Association.
Yeah, of course we do, like societies, community groups, associations,
exactly.
sporting clubs. Yeah, I totally.
Right. Like we would go play those kind of places, you know, as kids, you know, and so it was like sort of this strange throw you into the deep end and just go with it. So it was sort of it was fun to do that sort of thing and just be performing in front of people. But as I got older and started playing music more seriously, I was in a few different bands in college. And then when I got out of college, I was in a band called Ducks on Mars, and we were based in close to the DC area. And Ducks on Mars was a fun band. We did a lot of different stuff, but it was kind of like a jam band, you know, sort of Grateful Dead meets, I don't know, some soul music. I don't know. It was kind of an interesting,
psychedelic kind of concept.
Kind of like yeah, kind of sort of Jerry Garcia-esque. This guitar player, he was very, very Jerry, and kind of but a lot of fun musicianship going on in that band. And the music scene in DC and Maryland during that time, which was like the late 90s, mid to late 90s, was kind of just trying to become this exciting place. There was a lot of young people living in and around the city, and so there was a lot of nightlife there, and we would just be out. These guys that I played with before I graduated college, I was still underage, technically, you know, it's 21 is the drinking age here. And so I was like 20 or 19, and these guys in my band are sort of vouching for me with the club owners saying, oh, we got her, you know, she's with us, it's going to be okay. Because I wasn't legal to be out in the bars playing at that point, but they kind of let me come in and play anyway, because I was on stage all night, so they could keep an eye on me. But but yeah, that was sort of a crazy time. And after that, I started my own band in the same DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland area, in that same scene of musicians. A lot of people, we all knew each other and jammed together and did stuff like that. But I didn't get to go full time with music until about 2005, which was after we had met. But we weren't Mama's Black Sheep yet, but I was playing with a band out of Baltimore called Disappear Fear, Sonia and Disappear Fear. And Sonia is kind of a, you know, Dylan-esque in the sense that she's political, has a lot of political writing, topical writing, and she's very outspoken and and kind of moves in those circles in the folk music scene and rock music sort of blended together in an interesting way. But I had an opportunity to go on the road with her for about 3 years. I was full-time with that band, traveling all over the country and outside of the country. She does a lot of European stuff now. And we did Australia together in 2007. That was fun. But yeah, so sort of a long progression of things. When Sonia and I did Australia, she was staying on for another month to do New Zealand, and I was coming back to the States to be home. And I was a full-time musician at that point because I had quit my day job and was just, doing music. And so that's sort of when Mama's Black Sheep kicked off, because I needed something to do. And so I called Ashland and I said, hey, I'm coming back from this tour and I'm going to have like a month or so that I don't have anything to do. You want me to book us some shows and we'll do some stuff? And that's sort of how the whole thing began.
Sure. Ashland, I wanted to ask you exactly the same question and ask about your musical journey before you met and formed Mama's Black Sheep.
Yeah, like I said, I tried to fit that piano in the trunk of my car before I went to college, and it, like, no matter which way, it came from the furniture business. You can usually fit.
You should have got a hacksaw. That would have done the trick.
You needed like an IKEA piano that flattened down.
Yeah, flat pack.
Yeah. But so I switched to guitar, and then of course I had to delve into it, full-fledgedly. And so my very first duo was called Gypsy, and it was 2 girls playing guitar. I was one of them. And then after that, I joined a band called Common Bond. And before I walked for my diploma at Appalachian State, Music Industry Studies, Bachelor of Science, I went on tour with Common Bond, and I was with Common Bond for 14 years. Fairly nationally successful, very nice recognition from singer-songwriter stuff, and whatever. Just it was a nice run. I very much enjoyed it. After that, I was Ashland and Laura band for like 3 or 4 years, and then we started Mama's Black Sheep in 2008.
Laura, you've kind of briefly already answered this already in some ways, but I wanted to ask Laura, how did you meet Ashland? And what made you decide to start working together? And can you tell us about your musical chemistry and how you go about composing and writing songs together?
We met actually at a festival. And I kind of think of this festival as sort of this pinnacle moment. Sometimes hindsight is 20/20. And when I look back on this day in my personal history, I was like, wow, this was a really big day, because at this particular festival, I was there backing up a singer-songwriter named Tom Prasada Rao. He's a great singer-songwriter, originally based in Maryland and then moved to Texas, but he's kind of a world music guy, very, very cool, great writer. And I was playing percussion for him at this festival. And that same day, I met Ashland. She was playing on stage right after us, and she saw me play with Tom, and her and Mary Beth, Common Bond at the time, they were recording a CD. And so right after we finished our set, Ashland came up and they asked me if I would come and record some percussion tracks, because they needed some percussion on their CD to finish it up. And so of course I was like, well, sure, why not? Because I was just playing with whoever and kind of floating around at that point, doing whatever I could do musically. And so we ended up, like 3 days after we met, I was in the studio with her recording with Common Bond for their Chasing Solace album.
And when I'm standing at the back of the venue and seeing her behind Tom Prasada Rao, and I'm like poking Mary Beth, I'm like, it's a girl doing all that. Look at that, it's a girl playing all the drums like that. That's a girl. That's a girl. Let's get her on our album. I'm all stuttery and everything, just like awestricken, And so then, like, I don't know if back in high school, where you could shove your friends into the door, we could get the bathroom pass at the same time. You shove them in the door and they're like, okay. So Mary Beth and I, she's like 5 feet, I'm 6 feet. And then she's like, go ahead, big girl, you go ask her. And I'm like, no, you go ask her, you go ask her. So finally I said, okay, I'll go ask Laura to be on our CD. I'll do it. So we walk up there. Here's Laura. We walk up there. Mary, let's say she's Mary Beth, and I like shoved. I shoved Mary Beth. She's like, hey.
So Mary Beth's like right in my
Right in her
face.
face.
Right,
Hey, can you be on our CD, please? Yeah.
Of course, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, all right, no problem.
And the rest is history, as they say. What were your kind of initial impressions of one another, and in terms of like musical chemistry and being able to compose and write lyrics together? Why do you think you gelled so well? What was it about one another that you were able to work so well together, and also about your personalities? Is there a mix of personalities, a blend that for you kind of works well,
Yeah.
or how does that dynamic work?
Never really wrote together at all.
Well, it took us a while to write together, actually.
Kept asking, you know.
I did. I
I'm like,
kept
no.
asking.
And I'm like, no, we're too different. No.
She didn't want to write with
No,
me
not
because
doing it. Nope, not
she
happening.
thought
No,
our
no.
styles, she thought our styles were incompatible, like writing wise. So for several years, for the first several years of Mama's Black Sheep, we wrote our own songs and then we arranged things together, which always worked
I
very
see.
well for us. Because we do kind of speak the same musical language, you know, like she gets what I'm saying without me even having to say it. She already understands what I'm looking for, and kind of I think that's a vice versa as well. But you know, I was like, finally, I said, Ashland, we really need to write a song or two together. Let's do this. And she was like, well, fine. So it sort of turned into a dare, because I don't think that she thought I would actually do this. But she said, if you write a country song, I will write a song with you. I said, okay, I will write a country song.
And then I'm like, oh, let's see what happens.
And that song turned into one of our most requested songs that we've ever written, is Spoonin', which we wrote. That was our first co-write together.
So she wrote half of it and I wrote half of it. We came up with the melody and the chorus together. And then so the verses that she sings on Spoonin', she wrote. The verses that I sing on Spoonin', I wrote. So it's kind of a 50-50 kind of thing. We wrote it pretty much underneath the same household, 2 different floors, and there was a floor in the middle with like a yellow legal pad via text message. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, I think that's great. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, I think that's great. You know, and then the yellow legal pad was like, okay, this is sticking. This is sticking. This is good. This is good. Yeah, and so
it worked out.
Came forth Spoonin'. Yeah.
Ashland, can we talk about forming the band Mama's Black Sheep in 2008? And I wanted to ask you, how would you describe the band's sound and musical style? And how did you meet the other band members who play violin and bass?
Well, as Laura said, you know, we met at the Susquehanna Music Festival, which Sonia and Disappear, they're the ones that ran it. And she had just gotten back from tour with them, and she's like, you want me to book some gigs or whatever? And I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a shot, you know? And so we were trying to think of a band name. And I said, well, how about the Black Sheep? Because we're both the black sheep of the family. We really are. I mean, both of our siblings, like gazillion figures with the huge houses and all that. And
it followed a very traditional path.
Yeah,
our sibling.
And we're very on the alternate path, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I was like, Black Sheep. She said, well, what about Mama's Black Sheep? It gives it a little feminine spin with 2 girls, whatever. And I said, that's great. So we started Mama's Black Sheep then. As far as the band members, she was playing with Sonia and Disappear Fear, and so was Helen, the fiddle player. So pretty much I stole her from Sonia and Disappear Fear, and I
stole the entire band.
I stole the fiddle player too to
Why
come play
why
in my
not?
band, you know? Yeah.
It's called talent scouting, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
When you see what you like, you see what you like.
I'm like,
you know?
come on,
Yeah, and
Robert,
if they're
come on,
good,
let's make
yeah,
something
take them for your own
good.
benefits.
They were all free agents. I didn't really steal them per se, but yeah, that's how I met Helen and freestyle. So.
And our musical style is very hard to pin down, because we do delve into a lot of different styles of music. But
the one thing that I hadn't ever really honed in on or learned how to experience was the blues until I started playing with Laura. And now I feel like my playing style is completely different. Like not better or worse, just different, than it ever was before, because it's a whole different genre. Playing blues is completely not, I mean, country is blues, but I've learned so much more than I ever thought that I would.
It's a little country, a little blues, a little rock, a little
pop,
soul, a little pop, a little everything.
It's interesting where you mentioned about blending styles, because in many interviews I've done with musicians, we always talk about how the dots join with history. And if you take, 50s rock and roll, for example, it all comes from, the white side of it comes from country, and predominantly the black side of it came from the blues. And, and then you get the British invasion of the 60s that kind of took rock and roll, blues and country. And then you get the Beatles, Stones, the Hollies, and all these groups. So it's interesting how, all the styles and different genres blend. I wanted to ask you, Laura, about performing extensively on the live music scene. What venues do you normally play, and what parts of the world have you performed? And second to that, can I ask, do you have an agent or someone who takes care of your bookings and publicity?
On the second part of that, you're looking at her. We mostly do all of our booking and publicity in-house, unless there's like something special happening. We did occasionally we'll hire a publicist to do a specific push, like for a new album or something like that. But for the most part, we do all our own booking and publicity in-house. So we're sort of
a semi-well-oiled machine.
Sort of a fully integrated small business where we wear all the hats and do all the bookings. And one of the things that does allow us to do is have flexibility in when and how and where we travel, which is great. Because, if there's someplace we want to go, like England, for example, we can just say, well, we're going to plan a tour to the UK and we're going to do this and that and come and play. It's nice to have that flexibility. But yes, we do play in all varieties of venues. We've played the most intimate house concert up to the most huge festival, depending on what we're called on to do. But probably the majority of our gigs are in mid-size venues, bars, restaurants, nightclubs, theaters. That's the bulk of our work. And we do a fair amount of private events. You kind of have to divide it up. If you're going to be a full-time musician, you have to be able to diversify a little bit and get in there where you can.
Before we started recording, you mentioned that you're currently on the road and you don't get back home till Sunday. How do you find life on the road? For you, is there a buzz and excitement about going away from home and performing, or do you find it kind of a lonely experience, or a combination? For you both personally, do you kind of like that lifestyle?
I do. I like it so much that for my entire adult life, I have traveled for a living. Been in pretty much, we're broken up into states over here, a new state every single day while I'm working, generally speaking, always flying or taking a train or, a boat or singing on a boat or,
Always in motion.
Always in motion. And I think for a personality type like mine, I'm very ADD. I have to go, ADHD when I was younger. Now I'm too old to be the H part, the hyper part. It hurts, to be like that. But yeah, so I very much enjoy it. How about you?
For you, is it the excitement of seeing new places, going to different locations, meeting different people from all backgrounds and walks of life, and also them being able to experience and hear your music on the live circuit?
Yeah, but it comes around to bite me in the butt whenever there's some kind of doppelganger somewhere that looks exactly like that person that I know and love that's over here, and it's way on the other side of somewhere else. And I'm like, is that you?
It's so good to see you. And they're like, oh, we've never met before.
Who are you? But yes, it's very exciting. I love meeting people. I love the thing that I love most is sharing the gifts that I've been given, especially when they touch someone else. That's what means the most to me in life.
A difficult question next, but I wanted you, Ashland, to describe how you would describe your fan base and followers, and how do you go about releasing your music, and which platforms do you use to achieve this?
It's not as difficult as one would think. It's just like any other small business. I'm going to field a little bit of this to Laura, but I would describe our fan base as extraordinarily fanatically loyal. For instance, we were out of work for more than 9 months because of COVID, and we just had an outpouring of sources to where we could continue to do what we do.
A lot of support from the fans during that time. It was great.
And I just don't think that without that kind of, really loving support from our fan base, that we would have been able to continue to do what we do. So we feel very blessed in that. I'm going to field you on the hard copy digital formats and
Platforms.
Yeah.
We are on all of the typical streaming platforms and download sites, iTunes and Spotify and all those services, the digital services that are now offered for music, at least in this country. I'm not sure what you guys use mostly in England. Do you use?
Pretty similar now with Spotify, iTunes. I guess whilst you mention those platforms, when you record now, do you still release hard copies on CD, or do you find that market's pretty much saturated or gone completely now?
This is a very difficult question, and one that we have actually been tossing around ourselves, because we are in the process of getting down to the ends of runs of large orders of hard copy music. So we're sort of down to our last few cases of some of our CDs, and some are no longer available in hard copy at all. They're only available as downloads. And it's a difficult decision, because some people, like at live shows, some people really still love to have that hard copy thing in their hand that you can sign for them, or whatever. It's and we always include things in our hard copy, like books with the lyrics, and there's special stuff that comes with that package. It's not just the music itself. Whereas when you can download artwork, but a lot of times people don't do that. They just download the songs and that's it. So it's a toss up on what we're going to do with the next recording, whether we're going to do it solely digitally or make a small run of hard copy albums. I think we might do some CDs, only because some of our fan base still really looks for that, and they aren't savvy with the newer technology. We have fans from 8 years old to 80 years old, so it's hard to make everybody happy. Some of the people who are older and don't want to deal with digital technology, even though pretty much everybody 60 and under knows how to use their iPod at this point, or their iPhone, but but some people are just hardcore. I really want that CD. So we don't want to limit ourselves, but I think if we do a run of hard copy music again, it'll be a smaller run than maybe what we've done in the past.
A question for you both again. We briefly touched upon songwriting, and we kind of mentioned about the difficulties of writing as a partnership, and who takes sole ownership of a song and who does a certain part, if they compose the music or write the lyrics and so on. I wanted to ask you, when you write songs, do you draw on references or inspiration or things that have happened in your lives? And do you like to tell stories or explore particular themes? How does it work for you when you think, oh, I'm gonna write a song that needs to be on an album? How does that process work for you both?
I think it's a multi-level question, being as that, of course, there's going to be some interest of some sort to write the song, whether it be for oneself, for the audience, for the market, we don't really do anything for film, or what it would be nice if we did, but we don't. So we don't like,
We haven't yet.
but
Could be
not
somebody listening to
necessarily-
this interview. You never
not
know.
necessarily commissioned to be writers or anything like that, but we do challenge each other and ourselves to write. And I think personally for me, to write a song, for me, there has to be a point. What is the point? Meaning, what's the purpose? What's the subject? Why? And like, let's say it's a shoe. Let's say that's your point, shoe. Then shoe could also mean shoe flash shoe. It could also mean stinky shoe. You need to clean your shoe. Or it could mean all kinds of different things. So you just like, if shoe is the point, then you wrap all funny little verses around it. Or if it's a more serious song, then it might be fly. And then you write all the way around that. So that's, for me, is kind of how I do it.
Yeah.
For me, it's a little bit, it really depends on the song. There are some songs that I have drawn inspiration from a particular experience of my own or of somebody that I know. And some are just spur of the moment. Every once in a while, some song will just come through and I'll wake up in the morning and this song will already be in my head and I just have to race to like get it on paper because that's how it arrives. And I don't think for me, there's no formula for the way that I write. It's sort of what is inspiring me at the moment.
I'd like to just say one more thing about that. One of the most amazing things to me about Laura Cerulli is that she writes all of her songs on piano. And I'm pretty much the only tuned instrument in the band. I play guitar. So all of the songs that I play that she wrote, she taught me from piano to my guitar.
Okay, yeah.
Like she'll point at the notes. No, it's this one. No, it's that one. I mean, and so, oh, okay, so I have to do an octopus chord. It's kind of gonna go, oh, okay, now I've got it. All right, yeah, okay.
It doesn't always transfer exactly. I don't play guitar, so I have to kind of, sound it out. But
yeah, I think that's just amazing. I wanted to share that.
From the songwriting process, now we move on to the recording process. You've currently released 4 albums so far: Unmarked Highway, Drivin On, Live at the Bevy, and The Sheep Save Christmas. Can you give us a brief synopsis on each album? And do you have a favorite recording? And if so, why?
I think I'll go first on this one because the first 2 speak, I think, volumes to me. Like I said, working with Laura, it's just, oh my gosh, fantastic. She just got such a great ear and a great idea about how songs should go, how rhythm should weave in and be intertwined with sound and chords and things like that. So Unmarked Highway, even though we were very young little puppy sheep at that point in time, little
lambs.
we were like little mommy's black lambs instead of mama's black sheep. Yeah. I really love that album just because it was just so pure and true what we put forth on it. And then secondly, Drivin On was our first live album, our second album. And I love that album because we recorded in like over 11 different venues in all kinds of different cities and places, and then sifted through all of these takes that we recorded everywhere, and then found, the songs that would work and whatever else. The title track of the song is called Drivin On. Now, we were singing in Mebane, North Carolina, and an Amtrak train went by.
We were outside. We were
And
playing
it went,
outside.
and it was in the same key that the song Drivin On was in. So we loved it in the recording.
Keep that on the
You
recording.
can't
Yeah.
plan that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a moment, yeah.
And then so Live at the Bevy. And
Live at the Bevy is one of my personal favorites. It was as our third CD. I feel like we were getting to a place where we were more developed in our sound and in our writing. That's the album that has Spoonin', which is that was the first song we co-wrote. And we did a real major production. We had not previously done that much production for an album. That was not only a CD, but it was a live concert DVD and CD like 2-disc set that we released. So it had, it was a full 3 or 4 camera shoot that got edited down, and we flew in our whole crew with us out to Cleveland where we recorded it, and had a wonderful audience of some of our most favorite fans and friends who all flew into Cleveland with us. And it was a beautiful spot, and the show went off beautifully. Like, we were really, really happy with how things went. There was some post-production, but we barely changed anything other than EQing some things and a couple of little glitches that came up. But for the most part, it's a very we were able to capture the energy of what our live show is, which is a really special thing for me. The fans are what make the show. I mean, our show is fairly consistent show to show. We change it up to make it different and special for ourselves. But as far as how we play each song, we play fairly consistently from show to show. But the fans really make it different, because the energy of the room is what we feel on stage and what we feed off of. So I feel like our energy is so much better when we have all this love and energy coming back at us in the room. And it was just a great show. So that one's real special to me for that reason. And it was fun. Like, it was fun to have that many logistical things juggling all at once and get it all to come together like that. It was a process. And then finally, our most recent, The Sheep Saved Christmas, Ashland had bugged me for a long time. She was like, we should do a Christmas CD. We should do a Christmas CD. And I'm like, no, we're not doing it. Just like I bugged her about writing a song together. And I'll be darned if she wasn't right on it. That CD, we brought together some of our most favorite musical friends to come in the studio with us, and we had a blast. It was just a party nonstop. We had so much fun recording it and coming up with the ideas and the arrangements. And Tony Corelli, who's our favorite engineer in the world, was in the studio with us, and he's just magical. But the album came out way beyond my expectations, and it's actually, I think for both of us, I'll speak for you too, one of our favorite things that we've ever recorded in our entire musical careers. Even though it is a Christmas CD, and I'm not a big fan of Christmas CDs, but I like to say it's the Christmas CD for people who don't like Christmas CDs. Yeah. And if you like Christmas CDs, you're gonna love it. But it's so much fun. We had a great time.
Another question for you both, again. I wanted to ask you, how difficult is it to make a comfortable living as a professional musician? And from all the revenue streams available, which would you say is the most lucrative? And I also wanted to ask, are you published songwriters, and do you receive any royalties from your work?
We make an existence.
Yes, a comfortable living is depending on your definition of comfortable living.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not so comfortable trying to make the existence, but we're able to do it, and we're happy about that.
We do it, and we make it work. You have to, with it, like with anything. I think if you're gonna pursue your passion, no matter what it is, you set up your Etsy store and sell, car decorations or whatever it is that whatever widget you're making. Ours happens to be music. If you're passionate about something, you can make it work. You can turn it into a functioning and well-paying business. It just takes a lot of time and effort. And you have to be able to compromise on things like, how big a house do you really need? Yeah. How many people are you really going to pay to take care of this and that for you? And how much are you going to do yourself? And that's sort of those are the tough things that we face as small business owners and running our own small business. But yes, it's definitely possible. And especially now, I think it's easier than ever, honestly, with things going the way they are for independent musicians to really make a name and a comfortable living. You just have to really be motivated to make it happen.
I think you've made an interesting point there, because you meet people in life who have what you deem as very good careers, where they earn a good salary and they have perks that come with that, like pensions, holiday, share save schemes, and so on. But a lot of those people I've met never seem particularly happy, and they always turn around and say, well, in another lifetime, I would have liked to have been a writer, or I would have liked to have been a musician. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's great to see someone do something that they love and they're passionate about, and it's in their blood, and it's come across in this interview that you are very passionate about music.
Absolutely.
And that's all you've ever known in some ways. It's been, as I said at the beginning of the conversation, it stems from your family roots, your education, and everything you've ever done all the way through your life.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You gotta make your own happy sometimes, and it's being able to do something that makes us feel like we're doing the right thing. I've had jobs before when I was younger that were not music related, and I would wake up and I'd be like, why am I doing this? Like I had to question myself why. Before I took the leap into full-time music, I had to ask myself, really, this is something you've always wanted to do? Are you sure you're good, with doing this? And I'm like, yes, I am good with doing it, because it's going to be so much more personally fulfilling for me to do something that I love doing. It never feels like work.
Moving forward, trying to look to the future, looking into the crystal ball, what would you say are your long-term plans with Mama's Black Sheep? And are you working on any studio recordings? And do you have any tours in the pipeline or planned?
We sing in St. Croix every year. It'll be our 13th year, U.S. Virgin Islands, mid-January to mid-March. So we're planning on doing that again, 2023. And we have a working plan for a new studio album, though we do not have a plan as of yet to actually be in the studio. We're still working the plan to get in the studio.
We don't have a date for the studio
Not
yet,
a date yet,
but it's coming.
it's coming at some point.
It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. We're still arguing over whether it's going to be in the studio or live. I'm arguing for live again. She's arguing for studio. So we got to fight that out.
Yeah, discuss that.
In just a moment, we come on to the end of the interview where we ask the same Your Take guest the same 13 questions to wrap up the interview. They're always an interesting lot of questions. I'm interested to hear your responses. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you both, outside of your musical endeavours, what are your interests and hobbies? And would you like to work in any other creative areas outside of music? Or have you ever thought about using your music talents maybe to teach others, or perhaps compose for film or television?
I've taught guitar in the past. Because I don't read music, that has been a pretty big challenge. It limited me to just very beginner students. You don't necessarily have to learn to read music, just to learn how to hold the instrument, how to put your hand up to it. So I've done that. But as far as futuristically, I've always thought about, voice acting. I always like to make funny sounds and funny voices and stuff like that. So as far as writing for film or the industry in any way, doesn't really work like that for me. You can't say, hey, write a song about a shoe. You know what I mean? I could, but I feel like it's silly, and maybe you need
you were starting a song about the
I
shoe.
think I'm gonna write a song about a shoe. It's gonna be a shoe.
Do it.
But yeah, I've always wanted to do some other things while we're doing this right now, though. I want to really focus on this.
Yeah, I have a lot of interests and hobbies, many. I do a lot of DIY. I'm always building something or fixing something or playing around in the yard or gardening or in the water. We're both big fans of the water, so we like water activities of all varieties. But creatively, my background is in education, so I think, you know, later in life, if we are not on the road as much, I could see myself doing some teaching of one variety or another, but I'm pretty happy, like Ashland said, I'm pretty happy doing what we're doing right now. So I don't have any big plans for that. And composing for TV or film, I would be open to something like that later down the road. But again, it's not something that's a big thing or something I dream about right now.
Laura and Ashland, Mama's Black Sheep, we come to that moment. We ask every single Your Take guest these same questions to finish every interview that we do, just to find out maybe things we don't know about them that we haven't established in the interview so far. You don't need to think about them in any depth. It's like being in the psychiatrist's chair. But here they are. Number one, what would you say is your favorite pastime?
Boating.
Scuba diving.
Nice choices. We move on to cinema. We haven't really spoken about film. We've touched a little bit about composing for film. But if you had to choose a favorite film, what would it be and why?
Shawshank Redemption, because it's about breaking out of jail.
And it's a great film. I actually saw that film when I was 15 at the cinema, and it was at a time where multiplexes had just come to England. Obviously they happened a lot earlier in the US, and this was around about mid-90s, and there was nothing on at the cinema. Well, I'd seen pretty much everything, and I thought I might give this film a go. And it was a very good choice. Fantastic film, isn't it?
I can't wait for you to hear Laura's favorite film.
I have a lighter, fluffier feel for movies and film. One of my all-time favorites is actually Love Actually.
Yeah.
Love Actually, because it's a
British
not
films.
only is it a staple of our holiday film watching, but it's such a feel-good movie, and the cast is really what makes it for me, because like a good half of my favorite actors and actresses are in that movie. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the
Love
cast.
actually is all around.
Who do you like is in terms of the cast members?
Everyone, but Emma Thompson is one of my favorites. Always, like, she's really I love British film, and all kinds of British television, and I am a huge Monty Python fan, and you know, I in fact we were just singing a Monty Python song in the car today. All right, I won't do it, but anyway, it's just, I just love it. It's fantastic. Love the movie.
Emma Thompson is an interesting choice, and it's nice to hear an American speak so well about the British film industry, because I think we as British kind of take our own film industry a little bit for granted, and have done for many years.
Speaking of Grant, I love Hugh Grant.
And you love Hugh Grant.
I love Hugh Grant, but it's mostly because if I forget his name, I can always call him Grant Hugh.
But don't ever mention that incident with the hooker going back.
No,
many,
we
many
won't talk
years
about
ago.
that. We don't talk about that
Yeah, I
incident.
love Hugh Grant. He's great.
From cinema now to novels, who would you choose as your favorite novelist?
I would have to choose Nora Roberts. Also, she goes by J.D. Robb, so she has a whole different
The Eve Dallas series.
Eve Dallas series of J.D.
mysteries.
Robb, but Nora Roberts, she's all like, it's almost like watching the Hallmark film, like it's just really heartfelt and sappy, and I love that kind of stuff. So
I love mystery writing, and one of my favorites is Jacqueline Winspear. She's phenomenal and does the Maisie Dobbs series of novels, which are all, set in post World War I Britain, of all places. But I also, I don't know that I could pick a favorite. I have so many mystery writers that I enjoy, but she's one of my favorites.
Outside of music, if you could have chosen a different profession, what would it have been?
I think I would have been a visual artist.
I think I would have been a teacher.
Who in life next would you say has been your greatest inspiration?
My dad and the Girl Scouts, of course.
And what about
I think
yourself, Laura?
my parents are also very inspirational to me. But I think anybody who runs their own business and is a voice for change in the world, and lots of people fit that bill.
We're going to talk newspapers next. Do you read a newspaper?
Nope.
And if so, which one? That was a quick answer. Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah.
I don't often read the newspaper. I prefer NPR or BBC News. Get a more real take.
When you're on the road, do you both like cooking? And what would you say is your favorite food?
I like to buy food when I'm on the road, and I love the 7-layer chocolate cake.
Why not?
We're both chocolate fans. I would say dark chocolate is maybe my favorite food.
But if I were to cook, I think chicken would be my favorite.
Yeah.
It's the most
We
versatile.
do cook some on the road, but we cook more when we're at home.
A tricky next question, and this stumped some of our guests. We asked them to choose a favorite cultural icon. It could be maybe a religious figure, someone from history, maybe a political leader, a revolutionary, someone who's changed the way we live, an inventor. Who would you cite as your cultural icon, favorite one?
I think for me, it would be Maya Angelou. She's very, very powerful writer. And one of my favorite works that she's done is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it's like a bird in a cage still sings. There's still so much beauty outside of being caged in. And that's just always been so inspirational to me.
And yourself, Laura?
I think this is a hard one, but I'm going to go with current cultural icons and go with Michelle Obama. I think she's amazing.
Good choice. Curse words next.
Yeah.
What would you cite as your favorite curse word and why?
I'd say shit fire.
That's from a real Southerner right there.
That's shit fire. Watch them jalapenos.
I would say shit only because it's so versatile, it's because
Shit,
it's shit like, oh no, shit, or shit like, oh, you're the shit, or oh shit, It's very versatile word. I like it.
I'd imagine with touring, your touring duties and all the musical experiences, places you've traveled, you've seen so many places in America and in the world as well. But what would you say is your favorite place or holiday destination?
For me, absolutely would be blue water. Anywhere that you can see the bottom, like blue water, will be my favorite, no matter where it is in the world.
I got to go with St. Croix. We're there every winter, and it's sort of like my happy place.
There's blue water there too.
There is blue water there. Yeah, incidentally.
I love the image and about clear blue water. I could totally get what you say. There's nothing better than being able to see the bottom if you can, and see all the sea life, and beautiful. I never like to ask musicians this question, but who would you say is your favorite music artist, and what is your favorite album? You did cite some of your favorite at the beginning.
I would have to say Sarah Bareilles. She's just brilliant, like Elton John brilliant. Not him, no one's him. But my favorite album by Sarah Bareilles is Little Voice.
This is a very unfair question, James.
I hate asking musicians this
I
because they say,
hate this
can I name 10? Can I name 20? Can I?
Yes.
It's impossible, isn't it?
I'm gonna narrow it down to 2 albums that I really love, and I have so many more, but these are 2, like if you were trapped on the desert island and you could only bring 2 albums. My 2 would be Tori Amos, Little Earthquakes, and George Michael, Listen Without Prejudice.
And if you had to pick one favorite artist or musician, who would it be?
favorite. I'll just say Tori. We'll just go with Tori because I think she's amazing.
The last two now. What would you say is your greatest achievement to date?
For me, I think my greatest achievement has been that thus far, I've been a full-time musician for my entire adult life. And there's not a lot of people that can say that. So it's a great achievement for me, and I feel very blessed.
Mine is similar, although I haven't been a full-time musician my entire life. But I feel like I have, and we have created this business that allows us to bring joy and hope to so many people. And I think that's a really special thing. And I feel equally blessed to be able to do that.
And the final question for this interview, this Your Take interview, how do you both wish to be remembered?
I wish to be remembered giggling when it's most inappropriate.
If you knew Ashland Miller well, you would understand why that's such a fitting answer for you.
Even if it's just the shoulders going up and down, and you know I'm giggling and you giggle too, you're not supposed to be. Oh yeah, I want to be remembered like that for sure.
Always laughing at funerals, this one. I want to be just remembered as somebody who made a positive impact. That's it.
I think, in fairness, it's been a nice interview. I say this evening, it's still afternoon where you are, but there has been some laughter and some giggles, and it's been really interesting to hear your story. And Ashland kind of hit the nail on the head when she said her greatest achievement was always being a full-time professional musician. And I thought that was a lovely summing up and answer. And thank you for sharing your story, your musical journey.
Well, thank you, James.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
And lastly, how do we find out? How do we listen more to your music? Where do we go? Where can we hear it? Where can we buy the albums or download them?
The easiest way is to go just to MamasBlackSheep.com. It's all the links to our social media and everything is there as well. But that website has our full schedule, our bio information. There's a web-based store there where you can download all the music directly from us so that nobody else gets a cut, which we like that the best. But yes, in the sheep shop.
So in the very top, when you go to MamasBlackSheep.com, there's little words that say sheep shop. You have to click on that.
There's a menu of all different things, but sheep shop is one of them. That's where everything is.
I wish you all the best with the new album, whether it's a live album or it's recorded in the studio. And hopefully one day, hope to see you here in these shores in the UK.
We would love that.
Wish you all the best with your tour, your short tour at the moment, and getting home safely on Sunday. And finally, again, thanks for joining us on Your Take.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us, James.
Thank you.